Hello and welcome back to your OnlyAccies preview for this week's game against Kilmarnock. We're obviously coming off the back of an embarrassing defeat to Partick Thistle, which we'll touch on in a second for any fans who want to relive what a nightmare that was. We'll also be looking ahead, of course, to our game at the weekend against Killie and talking about the news we got today, an injury update from Accies for the first time in however long. It's not great news though, so we're touching on that as well. But to talk about Partick, David, I know you weren't at the game, but you did manage to see it at home. I mean, I said in the video, there's no other way I can describe that other than embarrassing. That's exactly what it was. What did you make of it? I haven't got a chance to speak to you since the game.
It's a disgrace. It really is a disgrace. This is the most distant I, and probably the majority of any Accies fan, has ever felt with the club, on and off the park. I mean, I was listening to the Open Goal podcast, and Andy Halliday summarised it perfectly. He said the less said about Hamilton, the better. And both Slaney and Cy Ferry point out that we've just downed tools. That is unacceptable. Whether we're getting beat, I mean, I don't have the goal day times to hand, but it must have been about 4 or 5 goals in the space of 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was
something like that.
20-minute spell that just
like we're a professional football team. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. I mean, I really haven't felt that flat. Like, Jake, not even as an Accies fan in my fucking life. Like, it's, and I'll consider myself lucky for that. But that was an absolute disgrace. There's just no effort. I don't think the players give a shit that they're playing for. We're talking about this great academy and amazing young boys. They don't want to be playing for Hamilton. They really don't. And I don't think any of them, all this playing for the badge and all that. First, like, I think that on and off the park, we are just a stinking prospect to anybody. I don't think anyone would want to touch us, like, experienced pro, good money or not. Like, I think people want to stay clear of us. There's no excuse for downing tools, and that is clearly what it was. I'm going all over the place just because this has been going over my head since Friday. I mean, what we've seen there is up there with some of the worst. It's not like somebody put a great tweet up. It's not like we're playing Rangers. You know what I mean? It's not like we're playing a class team. It's someone we should be competing with, and it was just an absolute shit show.
That was one of the biggest takeaways for me. Was, you know, at the start of the season we were going, we should be aiming for playoffs. You know, playoffs is kind of a good middle ground. Partick Thistle, the type of team that are going to get playoffs this season. And these are the type of teams that we're going to have to be beaten to prove that we can get playoffs. And if we were getting embarrassed 6-1 by a team that we really should be competing with for those spots, it just shows how far off we are from them. A few things I need to pick up on. It was told this week that Vertanen was actually playing through an injury on the weekend. Now, listen, I'm not saying it's not an excuse, right? Because he was not the only one who was horrible. Ronnie Hughes and Mullen made up the rest of the midfield, were non-existent, gave no protection to the back four. Luke Matheson, who came in as this $1 million, you know, what was it, £1 million pound-player for Wolves, you know, starred at Rochdale. It's just he's either nowhere near the player that I thought he was when he came in, or, as you said, he's completely down tools. He's came in and he's went, why the fuck am I at Hamilton Accies when I could have went on loan to, you know, a League One team in England or something? Do you know what I mean? Even back to Rochdale. Why am I here at Hamilton? He was at fault for at least 3 of the goals. One of them, by the way, was just a ball up to his side, up to his wing. He stops. He's like, that's going out. And Scott Tiffany's like, no, it's no. Picks it up, it's a goal. The second one,
we made Scott Tiffany look like an absolute worldie.
Yep.
Good player. And don't get me wrong, the type of player that we should be having at our club. I mean, we're starting to sound fucking deluded now. But the truth is a club like Thistle are miles ahead of us now. Luke Matheson, to touch back to your point, just look with his depth. Don't get me wrong, we're not zoning in on a guy, but he was at fault for quite a few things, and a few of the goals. It just looks with his depth. I think maybe when he first came in, we did have the beer goggles on a wee bit, and the fact that we didn't have a specific right back as soon as one came in, and like I say, don't get me wrong, we got our first win on his debut as well, so you put two and two together and you think it was clearly because of this guy and he's brilliant. But aye, a couple of people have put tweets out over the last few weeks to say I've not been impressed. You can't argue, but it's not just a case of him. Guys like Josh Mullen, I had such high hopes for Josh Mullen. Now, like I've said in a few podcasts, I don't know where we're playing him. I've never known him to play in the middle and so deep as well. But again, he's not showing anything for me. And if anything, he was going to be considered one of the best players in this league. But it's just everything about us now is just absolutely rotten. I mean, like, you were there, so you can see firsthand the crowd was disappointing. But on the back of that result, I mean, we'll obviously touch on Killie and Saturday coming. Would you grudge anybody no wanting to waste their money on that?
No, listen, I don't at all. I said that in the video. I said the attendance was already poor, right? It was really, really bad. But I don't blame fans for not showing up or not coming or anything. The fans that were left at the fourth goal, I said again in the video, I do not blame them whatsoever, because if we didn't have to do, I said this in the podcast before when things were going bad, if we didn't have to do our press and all that, I'd have probably walked out as well. The fans that stayed, quite rightly, made their feelings known. When the fifth goal went in, mate, where I was sitting, my whole section pretty much stood up and turned towards the board of directors, towards the directors box. I do not blame them at all. It's totally unacceptable. Andy Ryan, when we spoke to Andy Ryan in the press afterwards, that was the first question he was asked, was about the fans' reaction to it. And the first thing he said was, the fans pay their money, they are entitled to their opinion. On the back of today's performance, they are right. That's what he said.
But we both know, and this is going into a bigger issue, and it's not for us to comment on, but we both know that as fans, we'll get made out that we're being toxic, that we're being negative. And what world? I mean, like I said, if you watch the Open Goal podcast, Simon Ferry went, Jesus Christ, Hamilton Accies. We are a laughing stock at the moment in Scottish football. I mean, I told you royally from the League Cup group game with Ayr United. My dad went left to go to the motor while we were doing press, and he said that he passed a bunch of Ayr United fans and they were saying to themselves, that lot are going down. They called it, and honestly, we're absolute free fall at the moment. On and off the park, everything is rotten. There's nothing to be positive about. And if anything, you feel deluded for trying to kind of cling on to anything positive. But at the end of the day, the players that we've got are not good enough. These amazing youth prospects are totally getting caught out. That, to everybody in Scottish football, clearly seeing that we down tools. You don't down tools on something you're passionate about or you care about. You think yourself, fuck this, we're beaten. Now, we obviously were beaten. We're only winning that game for like I've said to you, the second we go behind, we're beat.
Yep.
As soon as we go behind, we're beat. But there's no excuse for a collapse like that. I mean, you pride yourself on being a professional footballer. You put the fight in. Look at other teams and the comebacks they make. We just don't have that in us, because we don't have players that get the balls to actually stand up to anything or come from behind. Or it's everything's got to be pretty. Everything's got to be in. At the end of the day, which is ironic. When was the last time that we just won a game with absolute no fuss at all? We took the lead, dominate, build on the lead, and that's it. It's never the case with ourselves. I mean, I thought we were getting a taste of that with the Inverness game, and then we go get a man sent off. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, it was a brilliant performance overall, but like you say, we just don't seem to have the bottle in ourselves. It's like I said, to go back to my point, I've never felt more distant for the team, because there's not a single player in there that I can honestly say is quality. There's not anyone that's standing out, or even like I say, we've been lucky over the last few years. We've been blessed with players with quality, like your Tony Andrews, your Danny Redmonds, Ali Crawfords, Greg Docherty's. When we've not had that, we've also had players that are blessed with fight, and like I say, cojones about them, like your Dougie Imneys, your Darian McKinnons, the Ziggy Gordons. These guys, we've got nothing even remotely close to that at the moment. We've got, like I say, we've got no fight. We've got no desire, and like I say, it really worries me now, the path that we're on, because like I say, if they think that we've got like £1 million players that are going to be assets that we sell and things like that, they've got another thing coming. Because I couldn't say anybody that we've got as a top half championship player at the moment.
No.
You know what I mean? Probably Andy Ryan. Andy Ryan's the only kind of bright spark there's been. But even then, you've got to feel for the guy, because he's wearing his heart on his sleeve as well. But the others, like I say, from Friday, they should all be ashamed of themselves. And like I say, as fans, we'll go into it probably, but I think we deserved an apology for that. Because like you said, we've been humiliated here. We've been an absolute laughingstock in Scottish football. We deserve so much better. And I was disappointed that there's not been any reaction. There's been nothing. I mean, like I say, the next home game, the gate will be minuscule, because no one will be in their right minds to pay money after that. And the club, should they be doing something to get people in, win fans back over, I don't think they'll be interested, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that takes me on to my next point was about Stuart Taylor's press conference afterwards. Now, it was asked before I got the chance to by the Hamilton Advertiser about the idea of an apology, fans asking for apology. And I don't have it to hand, but from what I remember, Stuart basically said, when you get into apologising for stuff, the fans know it's not good enough. We know it's not good enough. And basically we're told we're not getting an apology. Now, it's the second time that the first time I asked him about it at Arbroath, I asked if he had anything to say for the fans that travelled, and he said no. He says that again, we know enough, it's not good enough. And then again at the weekend there, he said the same thing. I agree with you. I think we were due an apology.
Look, I get the point. I do genuinely understand the point. You can't apologise for every time we have a result. But the fact of the matter is, we shouldn't be having this many results. We are 7 goals worse off than anyone else in that league. We're not even bottom. That's the worst thing. Look at the form Dunfermline are on, and they haven't even conceded as many as we have. I mean, it's 4 against Wraith, 4 against Arbroath, 6 against Thistle. It's not even like these are the top teams either. Like I say, I get the point. You can't just apologise for every result, but without sounding like a fucking idiot, man, like a team like Hamilton Accies, we shouldn't be having these results in this league. It's not like we're not equipped. It all goes back to what I've said for day one of this season. We were just so ill prepared. Now, I have my thoughts on why we were ill prepared. Personally, I think it's maybe down to a bit of arrogance. I think we thought we were in a much better position than we were. I think we thought guys like Lewis Smith, and don't get me wrong, we did as well, Jamie Hamilton, all these boys were going to absolutely run riot, and it's not the case, because they've got the talent, there's no doubt in that, but like you say, you need the cojones in this league, and it's just not there, and you need the right experience. I mean, look at a guy like Brian Graham. He's not the most blessed footballer in the world, but he's standing out in this league because he's got the work rate and he's got the bottle that we don't have. Thistle, when you're looking at them, it's the first time I have properly seen Thistle this season. They have the perfect balance that we don't. And like I say, we've been so well prepared. We've been chasing this season from day one because we've been so well prepared for it. And personally, I think it's down to arrogance. I think we thought we were in a much better place than we are. And like I say, it's going to take a big January that we know we're not going to get. But in the right minds, looking at us on paper now, if there's other offers there, any player would take another offer.
Yep. Just before we go to talk about the midweek kind of injury update thing we got today, and it's not really anything big, but I want to touch on it. What did you make of Andy Ryan and Stuart Taylor both saying after the game about the dressing room? One of the questions that was asked, and Andy Ryan was first up, and he said that there's a lot of angry voices and a lot of things said from certain individuals, is what he said. And then Stuart, again, when I asked Stuart Taylor about the dressing room afterwards, he said the same. He said there's a lot of angry players and a lot of shouting going on, a lot of raised voices. I mean, that tells me that, I mean, you saw it in the game as well. I don't know if you'll be able to see it watching from home, but when you understand, you could see it, Andy Ryan, the only player, seemed to be trying to get fucking something out of them.
Reaction.
Aye, he was the only one who, when the third goal went in, was screaming at them to get tighter. He was screaming at him just to tighten up, and he said that in the dressing room. He said that in the press conference, afterwards, about how, you know, when in a situation like that, you need to get tight. Don't let them get another. Then, you know, if you sneak a goal, the game's way back on. So that tells me he was probably stormed in there and had a few words to say. You know, what do you make about that?
I mean, if anything, it shows at least whoever it is shouting obviously cares, which is a lot more than what, like I say, is portrayed on the pitch. Like I say, obviously we're upset. Like, we know that these guys obviously must care about what they're doing, but it's definitely not coming across like that. I mean, just absolute bottle jobs. I mean, the thing that really concerns me now is, listen, this isn't anything new to you or I or anyone that's watched us this season. I've said to you repeatedly, if we concede, we're beaten. If we concede one, we'll concede within the next 5-10 minutes. The nation has seen this now. Our cards have been dealt. People know what to expect for us now. It's only going to get harder for here. At the end of the day, the heads have severely dropped. The fans' heads have severely dropped. At the end of the day, if we're going to pull anything round, it's going to be total against the tide now. We're uphill battle now. Like I say, a team like Killie, like, they're not flying either. They've not been brilliant, but they've got better personnel than we have. And if I'm Tommy Wright, I'm saying, listen, so if you get the lead in this game, you fucking press them and you'll double it, no problem. Because that people, like I say, we've been called out. It really got me just seeing that podcast when they said, like, the less said about Hamilton, the better. Bottle jobs. These guys are footballers. They've seen it firsthand. You know what I mean? It's I know it's a podcast, and like I say, they're not in the club, they don't see it, but they play football. They know a bottle job when they see it. The down tools. That's inexcusable. Could you do that in your job? I couldn't do it in mine. You get your ass felt, but it just shows where we are at the moment. It's absolutely rotten. If they're arguing amongst themselves, like I say, it shows that there's some passion for someone, but at the same time, it shows that they know as well as we do. There's people not pulling their weight. And we can go and name all these people, but that's not going to make us feel any better. These people should know within themselves they're in a brilliant position. Like, I play football for a living. Like I say, we're Hamilton Accies, but at the end of the day, they're still making good money for what they're doing. And that's going to be swept out from under them if we get relegated. You know what I mean? The majority of that club will have relegation release clauses. Honestly, it scares me to think what could happen there as a club if we go down, and we look more likely than not at the moment. Even Dunfermline don't look like they have the results that we do in us. I keep going off in tangents, honestly. I apologise, but it's something it's been going through my head all week. It's just stinking. Everything about it is just absolute rotten. Like I say, I can't even describe how I felt at full time.
Yeah, I mean, I really struggled. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really struggled to do anything after Friday, like in terms of like doing the video or anything like that. Because I mean, as fans were saying, there was so little that I could say that hadn't been said already. The fans that we've already touched on before, the fans that left, or the fans that didn't go, or the fans that aren't going to go from now on, I do not blame them whatsoever. The club aren't helping themselves. The players aren't helping themselves trying to get fans back on board. It's just, as you said, the whole thing from top to bottom right now is totally rotten, and they're not helping themselves in any way. I
mean, even the term fan, if you're a fan of something, it's because you see positives in something, you enjoy something. Like, if I'm a fan of a telly show and it just all of a sudden becomes fucking rotten, I'm going to stop watching it. But you can't do that with your club. I mean, it gets to the point where we're all just there out of completely blind loyalty now. There's nothing that there is to be a fan of when it comes to Hamilton Accies. There isn't. Like you say, on the park, off the park, it's retail, atmosphere, what the club do. There's nothing to be a fan of. We're all there just because we absolutely blindly love the club. But nobody can say they're enjoying the Saturdays. And like people have said again in tweets, people might see this as just like just blind negative comments at the bottom, but it's no. The people make sense. These people follow the club. Someone's put a tweet out on Saturday saying, think of the generations that we're missing out on now. Because at the end of the day, man, if I've got a young kid and I'm trying to get the following to Hamilton Accies. You, Brendan, and I, we've talked about it. There's been successful periods that made us fall in love with Accies, whether it was the playoff stage, whether it was the championship season with Billy Reid. If you take a kid, they're not going to be interested now. And that's them going. They look at Parkhead and Ibrox, and it's nothing but success and happy faces. At the end of the day, we've all got our feelings about that, but you can see why. Like, there'll be no persuading a young kid to go to Hamilton Accies, where everything about it, the atmosphere, the fan base, it's absolutely rotten. Fans are all at each other's throats. They're all at the club's throats. They're no interest in it. It's absolutely disgraceful, and it's horrible to see.
Yeah,
I'm just calling the obvious here, and nobody wants to see it like that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there by saying, you know, it's not a case of we're enjoying our weekends and we're there purely because of loyalty. Do you know what I mean?
It's just blind loyalty.
And you've hit that in the head. We'll skip through this next section just so we can get to talking about the game. We were told today that Virtanen played through an injury at the weekend, so he might be unavailable for the Killie game. Fantastic, even weaker in the midfield than we already are. Andy Winter is supposedly back on his way to training. Like, okay, great. And Matthew Shields, who we signed in a pre-contract from Rangers, is still a long way off featuring. So again, fantastic.
Money.
One fan suggested that Andy Winter coming back would put the club off signing a striker in January. Again, I can understand that mindset.
It will, 100%.
I can understand that mindset. You know, the whole Andy Winter will be like a new signing kind of nonsense we get. So we've got that to look forward to. But let's look at this weekend's game against Kilmarnock. I mean, do you want to? Just to look at the Killie's last 5 results. They've won 2, drawn 2, lost 1. And then look back at our results. We've won 1, drawn 1, and lost 3. I mean, looking ahead to it, listen, we're already weak going into it, especially with the news, obviously, that, you know, Virtanen could possibly out. So that limits our options immensely in the midfield. You know, we talk when we do these previews about what changes we would make to the lineup and you know what players we would bring in and all this nonsense. And when it comes down,
I wouldn't even know where to start.
When it comes down to it, we say what we would like to see. You know, we talked about Jamie Hamilton, the experiment in midfield to shoot up. That's not going to happen. That's not how Hamilton work. But frustratingly, I'm going to persevere. I would strip this team back to the basics. Stuart Taylor is trying to implement a style of play that these players are not good enough to do. He's trying to implement a style of play where we play out from the back, we press high, and we try and keep the ball on the deck, play it around, all that stuff. We are not good enough. The players aren't good enough to do that style of play, which then forces us to pump long balls up. So what I would do is strip the team back to the basics. Go for a 4-4-2. I would keep Fulton in goal. Matheson, as an only recognised right back, has to stay in. McDonald obviously stays in at left back. I would bring Popescu out, and I would have... I would keep Popescu in and pair him with Brian Easton. I would put Jamie Hamilton, and if he's fit, Virtanen. If he's not fit, I have to go with Ronan Hughes. It's an only other midfield option. Have those two as your 2 midfielders. Lewis Smith out on the right. Josh Mullen out on the left, where he's fucking supposed to be played. Moyo and Andy Ryan up top. A basic 4-4-2. You've got Jamie Hamilton, who's very keeping on the field. We went over it all last time. He can be your holder. If Virtanen is fit, which I get the feeling he's not going to be, he'll be the man that will put the pressure on. If not, you have to go with Ron Hughes, and I think those two I would ask to just sit back. And as I said, Andy Ryan is our captain and David Moyo up top. That genuinely is the only thing I can think to change. If we stick with what we're doing currently with this 4-4-3-3, 4-2-1-3, whatever you want to call it, is obviously clearly not working. And especially the fact that we've now got so little midfielders to choose from, you need to change up how we're set up. If he goes to reverts back to a back 5, like Brian Rice did and all that. I don't blame him given the back of that result, but I would hope that he wouldn't. Like I said, strip the team back to basics, go for a 4-4-2 and try and get that right. Because I think it was you that said, or maybe it was Brandon on a previous podcast said, if your team aren't getting the basics right, then you've got nothing to build on to try and make some kind of style of play or whatever you want to call it. We're not getting the basics right. Our passing's off, our defending's off, our finishing's off, everything's off. Strip it down, 4-4-2, make it simple. That's what I would say. Nobody expects us to get this is going to sound like such like small club mentality that we've criticised before, right? So I get it, maybe sound a bit like a hypocrite, but nobody expects us to get a result against Killie.
Mm-hmm.
So why not go in there, strip it down to basics, as I keep saying, and just see what happens is not what I'm trying to say, but just
show that we've at least get the capabilities to play basic football.
Give us something that we can build on and something that we can work with.
I totally agree with what you're saying, because I said that when we were talking about this season starting, we're playing a style of football we've not played in 7 or 8 years. We've never dominated possession. And like you say, the Morton game, the Ayr United game, we just didn't know what to do with the ball. We try to overcomplicate it, silly passes, and like you say, that's exactly what Luke Matheson was getting caught out with on Friday. Just trying to make far too many ambitious passes. Can't even do the basics right. I would agree with that approach, but I think the difference between other clubs and ourselves is other clubs, if they, for whatever reason, got that result that we did on Friday, they would be choking to get out on that park on Saturday and prove it wrong, get the fans back on side, make a statement, show that we're not a joke, which cannot stress enough. Everyone in Scotland is saying that we are a joke at the moment. But the difference between us is I think our players will be terrified to go out in that park. I think they'll be fucking dreading this game because there'll be a decent crowd at Rugby Park. Like I say, they've got forward options and they, like I said, they would have seen the game. They'll know fine well. Even the players will be saying to themselves, if we get a lead, it could be a pumping. And we know that. And listen, whether we think the players are going to redeem themselves or not, I can't see anything else but a pumping again. I can only be honest. You know me, we've done this for a long time. I am always, if anything, one of the most stupidly positive ones and over ambitious and maybe think far too highly of the team and the personnel, and that's down to, like you say, blind loyalty. But like you say, that was a complete eye-opener. And there'll be people hearing this saying, listen, we've seen this long ago, but like you say, you always give them the benefit of the doubt, and that completely ran out on Friday, because it's not even like we were well beat. Like you say, we were absolutely pumped, but like it was on you go. I don't give a fuck. We're beat. So
have you got your notebook? Have you got a lineup written down? Like any changes?
I think I honestly don't know, Ben. I think he should maybe try with Hilton. Not that he's shown any signs of any better, but the keeper's no doing it either. I would go with the team that you've said, but it won't be that team. What I think it will be is Matheson and McDonald. It will be Popescu and Want. I think Hamilton will still be on the bench. I actually think it will be roughly the same team that played on Friday. I don't get why Josh Mullen's not playing in his natural position, because he's done absolute hee-haw in the one they've given him. It's not his fault. That's not what's important. I don't care about that. I just want the players that I know that are capable to be doing what they're capable of, and no one's done that. Andy Ryan's shown us glimpses of that, but the fact that Andy Ryan's scoring the goals and that he has in this team shows you what he is capable of if he had a half-decent team around him. I mean, I don't get why we don't have guys like Lewis Smith and Josh Mullen working the flanks and getting the balls into the box. Andy Ryan reads the ball better than most strikers we've seen at Accies over the past few years. He would get on the end of them, no problem, but I don't even know what our identity is now, the style of play. I honestly don't know. And I feel that we're too stubborn to change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree. I also don't think that we'll see anywhere near the team that I suggested, and we'll see pretty much the same team. But that's one of the big things that I would like to see with my lineup. Obviously, that's all hypothetical, but that's why I put Mullen out wide, because we kept hearing about, oh, he's one of the best crossers of the ball. You know,
dead ball specialist, apparently.
Dead ball specialist. Somebody picked it, a Levy fan picked up some stats when I was talking to him about it, and he had one of the best cross to goal conversion rates in the Premiership last season, or a season or two ago. So that's why I would have him out wide, crossing the balls into your bigger target man like David Moyo, who got his first goal against Partick. You know, and Andy Rhynes, who can pick up the second balls, can be a nuisance in around a poacher, if you like, in and around the kind of 6-yard box. Listen, we're sitting here and we're talking about it. We all know what's going to happen. We all know we're going to get the exact same lineup, and we're going to go and be disappointed again. But listen, it's as you said, it's blind loyalty at this point. There's no.
I mean, what we've heard repeatedly is progression, not perfection. But I get as the manager or the head coach, you've got to be a cool head, and you've got to, like I say, control things. But there's points where you've got to say, whatever process or progression this is, it's not working. You don't, or part of any process of building up, there's no 6-1 defeats in there. Like, that can't be a part of a process of something that's working. You know what I mean? There's no positives to take away from that at all. So that is not progress in the slightest. Mm-hmm. Our Arbroath game, no progress. I mean, I mentioned to you, and I'm probably just putting nails into our coffin now, but I noticed that Brian Rice was doing the radio coverage at the game. You got to imagine what he would be saying to this. And then you start to wonder, did he walk away because he's seen this coming, just seen that, listen, I can't work with the guys that are not wanting to work, because you could probably argue that's what it looks like. Some of these guys are maybe unteachable, and they're in a routine, or they've got an arrogance about them, or I don't know. But I said to you before the Inverness game, because I didn't see anything coming for there, if we're going to turn it around, it'll start with something we don't expect. We went back to square one again with the following result, but if we're getting anything, even a goal in that game, it'll be unexpected for me. But I really don't know where we're going now, and it's horrible to see. I hate sounding like this. I've never done a podcast like this, but I haven't felt this low about Accies, and that's saying something about what we've seen over the last 10 years, maybe. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, listen, let's get our score predictions and try and maybe get some points on the table. Maybe I'm really scraping the barrel for any positives to try and pick up here. Let's try and get some points on our score prediction. My score prediction is 3-0 Killie. So even that's depressing. Listen, 3, I cannot see it going any other way. I think it's a stick one that we'll lose. As you said, I think if they get one early, which again I think they will, they'll do exactly what you said. They'll put pressure on because they know that we'll crumble under that pressure. I don't see us scoring at all. Killie are a good side, doing well so far in the league. I just cannot see anything other than another defeat, and another heavy defeat. So I'm going 3-0.
Hi. I mean, even what you're saying there, I don't think Killie are that good a side, but it shows you how far off it we are. Like you say, they made tons of changes. They got some names in. I don't think they're blowing anybody away at any stage in the season, but they're doing what they need to do, and that is far from what we're doing. I don't see how you can go for a 6-1 defeat to a win in the next week.
Yep.
I say that, in being Hamilton, we probably will, just because we're a fucking right there, but let's not kid ourselves on. I'll go with, I can't even say that, man, but I'll go with 4-0 Killie. Like, probably could even be more, but we're in an absolute rotten place. Like I say, I think they'll be terrified for this game. Hostile atmosphere, lots of fans. like you say, you can't blame the Hamilton fans, but they'll take some convincing to even support the team now. But we will. But I don't see where this is going to go anywhere but a heavy defeat. Yeah. I'd love to be proved wrong, but like I said, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, listen, let us know your score predictions, of course, on our social media, on our Twitter pages, I should say. If you put them in the YouTube comments, we do not count those. Please make sure and put them on the tweet that we put up every Saturday morning or every game morning, so you can be involved in the league table. David, thank you very much for joining me. And of course, thank you guys for watching. We will see you for our match reaction after the game.